Okay, so you want to own a fast food restaurant. You lease a busy corner, install a grill and a drive-through window, hire a crew, and sell inexpensive meals to hundreds of people every day. Cars keep moving, delivery orders keep arriving, and every burger, drink, and order of fries adds another few dollars to the register. It looks like one of the simplest businesses in the world. That is the dream. The reality is that a fast food restaurant is not really a burger shop. It is a high-speed traffic, labor, real estate supply chain and debt machine that happens to produce food. The restaurant may be full, the kitchen may be working without pause, and the sales screen may show millions of dollars by the end of the year. None of that guarantees that much money reaches the owner. A successful location converts three scarce things into cash: customer attention, physical convenience, and speed. The food matters, but the operating system matters just as much. Customers are not only buying a sandwich, they are buying a predictable meal that can be ordered, prepared, paid for, and handed over before patience runs out. That changes the way you should look at the building. The counter is a production line. Its menu functions as an inventory and pricing system. Through the drive-thru, each extra second can reduce the number of cars served during the busiest hour. Even the cup is part of the economics because beverages often sell for several times the direct cost of the syrup, water ice lid, and packaging. Before opening the doors, you must choose which business you are actually entering. An independent restaurant gives you control over the name, recipes, suppliers, design, prices, and menu. It also gives you responsibility for creating demand from nothing. A franchise sells access to a tested brand and operating system, but the contract may control nearly every visible part of the restaurant while still leaving the local owner responsible for payroll, debt, hiring, food safety, customer complaints, and most operating losses. The brand does not simply hand you a logo and wish you luck. It decides whether you qualify, whether your market is available, what training you must complete, and whether your financial resources are sufficient. McDonald's, for example, said in 2026 that a typical U.S. applicant generally needed at least $750,000 in non-borrowed, unencumbered personal funds. The company also recommended at least $100,000 of working capital for each restaurant and additional money for relocation. Those requirements do not represent the final purchase price. They are a signal that the franchisor wants an owner with enough liquidity to survive the purchase, the training period, the first operating shocks, and the bills that arrive before the restaurant has produced reliable cash. Federal disclosure rules add another gate. In the United States, a franchisor generally must provide a franchise disclosure document containing 23 categories of information. A prospective buyer is supposed to receive it at least 14 days before signing an agreement or paying the franchisor. Inside are the items that can matter more than the sales presentation: initial fees, required suppliers, litigation, closures, franchisee contacts, training obligations, advertising funds, contract terms, and any properly disclosed financial performance representations. Receiving the document is not the same as understanding the deal. A restaurant owner may read a royalty percentage and assume that the remaining sales belong to the store. Then the other claims on each dollar begin to appear. Rent may be owed to the franchisor or to a separate landlord. A national advertising contribution can be mandatory. Technology charges, renewal fees, transfer restrictions, approved vendor requirements, remodeling obligations, and local marketing commitments may sit beside the royalty. The contract can also require the restaurant to adopt a new kitchen layout, ordering system, sign, package, or building design years after the original investment was made. Money alone is not enough, because a restaurant also needs permission from the physical world. Zoning must allow the use. A drive-through may require separate approval because it changes traffic, noise, lighting, and vehicle queues. Building officials inspect the construction. Fire authorities examine suppression systems. Health departments review food handling, and local rules may govern grease traps, waste signage, hours, parking, accessibility, and outdoor equipment. One delayed permit can hold a finished kitchen closed while interest, rent, insurance, and payroll preparation continue. The entry price therefore arrives as a stack rather than a single number. A franchise fee may buy the right to join the system, but it does not build the restaurant. Construction crews still have to cut floors, install drains, upgrade electrical service, add ventilation, connect gas, fit refrigeration, mount fire suppression, and build a counter that can survive thousands of transactions. Equipment fills the kitchen with fryers, grills, freezers holding cabinets, beverage machines, sinks, timers, and point-of-sale terminals. Outside, the project may need paving signs, lighting, landscaping, menu boards, and an expensive drive-through lane. Opening inventory, uniforms, smallwares, insurance deposits, legal work, training, wages, utility deposits, and pre-opening marketing. Add another layer. Working capital matters because the first month may produce disappointing sales while the restaurant is already paying a complete schedule of expenses. If the build-out runs late, interest during construction converts time into cost. A 6-month delay does not merely postpone revenue, it can consume the cash reserve that was supposed to protect the first year. Debt makes the opening possible for many owners, but it changes the definition of success. The U.S. Small Business Administration's 7A program can support eligible loans for business acquisitions, equipment, leasehold improvements, working capital, and other approved purposes with a maximum loan amount of $5 million. The SBA does not operate the restaurant and does not promise that the concept will work. A lender still expects monthly principal and interest payments from the store's cash flow. Once debt enters the model, a busy restaurant can become a weak investment. Sales may cover food, labor, rent, royalties, and utilities, while leaving too little for loan payments, equipment replacement, taxes, and the owner's time. The income statement can show an operating profit even as the bank account becomes thinner, because accounting profit and available cash are not the same thing. Now the doors open. The first revenue stream is the obvious one, meals sold at the counter and through the drive-thru. Yet the profit contribution is not equal across the menu. A heavily discounted headline item may bring customers into the system, while fries, beverages, sauces, desserts, or larger sizes improve the economics of the transaction. The menu is designed not only around taste, but around attachment rate, preparation time, waste, packaging, and how easily a crew can produce several items at once. Breakfast creates a second day part from the same real estate. The building, parking lot, kitchen signs, and much of the equipment already exist, so morning sales can spread fixed costs over more transactions. That advantage disappears if breakfast requires a separate labor schedule, specialized ingredients, or products that generate too much waste after the morning rush. A third stream comes from digital and delivery orders. These transactions can reach customers who never pass the restaurant, and they can improve order accuracy by moving choices onto a screen. The platform, however, may take a meaningful share of the sale. DoorDash's published U.S. merchant plans in 2026 listed delivery commissions of 15%, 25%, or 30%, depending on the plan and marketing support, while pickup carried a lower commission. A $20 delivery order can therefore create more reported sales without producing the same store-level contribution as a $20 order collected directly at the counter. That is a bargaining power problem. The restaurant needs access to customers who search inside a delivery app, while the app controls ranking, visibility, promotions, and the economics of each order. Refuse the platform, and some demand may disappear. Accept an expensive plan, and the restaurant may be paying a large commission on an order that already includes food, packaging, labor royalty, and advertising costs. A fourth layer can come from catering group orders, late-night business, limited-time offers, or a strong beverage program. Each one tries to use the same kitchen more often or lift the average ticket. The best revenue is not always the revenue with the highest menu price. It is the transaction that adds contribution without creating a new bottleneck, extra waste, or a labor problem during the busiest period. This is where throughput becomes more valuable than theoretical demand. Imagine a lunch hour with a line of cars around the building. More customers are available, but the kitchen can only produce a certain number of orders. If one complicated promotion slows the grill-backs-up assembly and creates remakes, the restaurant may sell higher-priced products while serving fewer total vehicles. The menu has increased complexity and reduced capacity at the same time. Labor is the next constraint. Fast food depends on repeatable tasks, but repeatable does not mean automatic. Someone must receive deliveries, rotate inventory, clean equipment, prepare ingredients, cook safely, assemble accurately, handle cash, solve customer problems, manage breaks, close the building, and reopen it a few hours later. A weak schedule leaves stations empty during the rush. An oversized schedule protects service but consumes margin. The National Restaurant Association reported that salaries, wages, and benefits represented a median of 31.7% of sales among limited service restaurant respondents in 2024. Profitable limited service operators reported a median labor cost of 30%, while operators reporting a loss were at 34.1%. That 4-point difference sounds small until it is applied to a restaurant with several $million of annual sales. At $3 million of revenue, 4 percentage points equal $120,000. That amount can separate a reasonable owner return from a year in which the restaurant produces almost nothing after debt and reinvestment. Labor, therefore, has to be controlled, but cutting too far can reduce speed, cleanliness, accuracy, and repeat visits. The owner is not choosing between labor cost and no labor cost. The decision is how much productive capacity to buy for each hour of demand. Food and packaging create another large claim on sales. Beef, chicken, potatoes, cooking oil, cheese, eggs, produce, cups, lids, napkins, bags, and sauces move with volume, but not perfectly. Waste breaks the relationship. An item prepared too early may be discarded. A delivery error can spoil inventory. Portion drift adds a little extra product to thousands of orders. Theft, expired ingredients, poor forecasting, and a freezer failure turn purchased food into zero revenue. Commodity inflation can also attack the menu unevenly. USDA data showed that U.S. food away from home prices rose 3.8% in 2025, after a 4.1% increase in 2024. Restaurants responded by raising menu prices, changing portions, promoting bundles, and searching for productivity. Customers noticed the prices immediately, while the owner often saw the higher supplier invoices first. Occupancy remains due even when traffic falls. Rent. Property charges insurance. And common area expenses do not care whether it rains, a road closes, or a competitor opens across the street. Utilities can be partly variable, but refrigeration, lighting, ventilation, hot water, internet, security, and minimum service charges continue through slow periods. Equipment adds maintenance calls at exactly the wrong moment, because the most important machines often fail while they are being used hardest. Then the franchise system takes its share. Royalty and advertising fees are usually linked to sales, which means they fall when revenue falls, but they are deducted before the owner knows whether the remaining restaurant economics are attractive. Rent may contain a minimum payment. Required reinvestment can arrive in large, irregular waves. A store that looks profitable before remodeling may be accumulating an obligation that will absorb several years of owner cash. This is the central trap of fast food. The restaurant sells low-priced products through a cost structure that leaves only a thin, residual claim for the owner. High volume makes the machine look powerful because fixed costs are spread across more transactions. A modest decline in traffic, a few points of labor pressure, a rise in food cost, or an expensive delivery mix can remove most of the owner's return without making the restaurant look empty. The difference between the franchisor and the franchisee makes the trap even more interesting. McDonald's reported 45,356 restaurants worldwide at the end of 2025, and approximately 95% were franchised. System-wide sales reached about $139.4 billion, but McDonald's corporate revenue was about $26.9 billion, because the company does not record every franchisee sale as its own revenue. Instead, franchised restaurants generate royalties, rent, and fees for the corporation, while company-operated locations contribute direct restaurant sales. That structure changes risk. In 2025, McDonald's reported $16.5 billion of franchise revenue, and franchised operations produced roughly 90% of its restaurant margin dollars. The corporation participates in the sales of thousands of restaurants, while local franchisees supply much of the store-level labor, operating attention, and capital. McDonald's still carries real costs: property commitments, brand risk, technology investment, and corporate debt. But the economic machine is different from the machine owned by one local operator. For the franchisee, one store is a concentrated bet on one site, one crew, one lease, and one local trade area. For the franchisor, thousands of restaurants can produce diversified royalty streams. A weak location can be devastating to its owner, while remaining almost invisible within a global system. The same brand can therefore be an extraordinary corporate model and a disappointing local investment at the same time. Bergerim shows what happens when the promise of a system arrives before the system itself. According to a complaint filed by the Federal Trade Commission and the Department of Justice in 2022, the burger franchise was marketed to aspiring owners as a business in a box that required little or no restaurant experience. Many buyers paid franchise fees between $50,000 and $70,000. Some borrowed to fund the opportunity, expecting that the brand training and support would carry them through the opening. The failure began before customers ever saw a menu. Prospective franchisees still had to secure locations, obtain financing, complete construction, and meet operating specifications. The FTC alleged that the company sold more than 1,500 franchises from 2017 onward and collected tens of millions of dollars. Yet, the majority of those franchises never opened. Hundreds attempted to cancel, promised refunds, according to the complaint, often did not arrive. The original assumption was that the franchise package had removed the hard parts. In reality, a fee had purchased a contract, not a functioning restaurant. Financing remained uncertain, real estate remained scarce, construction remained expensive, and local execution remained the buyer's problem. Missing or contradictory disclosures made it harder for prospective owners to evaluate what was actually happening inside the system. Court orders entered in 2023 and 2024 permanently barred founder Oren Lani from selling franchises in the United States. The stipulated order entered judgments of $5 million as a civil penalty and nearly $38.85 million for consumer redress, although most of those amounts were suspended based on financial representations and a $1,000 payment requirement. The important lesson is not that every franchise is deceptive. It is that a brand name growth story or polished operating manual cannot replace due diligence on openings, closures, unit economics, franchisee contacts, financing needs, and the real cost of reaching opening day. Success looks very different. McDonald's did not reach more than 45,000 restaurants by treating each location as a creative experiment. It built a system designed around consistency, site selection, purchasing, scale, recognizable products, training, marketing, and repeatable operations. The company's 2025 system-wide sales exceeded $139 billion because a global brand, thousands of operators, major suppliers, digital ordering, drive-through capacity, and enormous customer familiarity reinforce one another. Scale changes the negotiating position. A large chain can purchase ingredients through a sophisticated supply network, spread national advertising across thousands of restaurants, invest in technology that one independent operator could not justify, and test menu changes across many markets. Customers already know what the sign means, which reduces the cost of explaining the product. Lenders may understand the operating history of an established concept better than an unproven idea. Even here, success is not guaranteed by the logo. McDonald's itself states that franchisee profitability depends on operating costs, occupancy financing terms, and the owner's ability to run the restaurant effectively. The system can provide traffic knowledge and purchasing power, but it cannot make a bad lease inexpensive or turn weak management into disciplined execution. Consider a simplified one-year model for a franchised fast food restaurant. These are illustrative, rounded figures, not the reported results of a particular brand. Assume annual sales of $2.8 million. Counter drive-through, pickup, delivery, beverages, sides, breakfast, and promotions all flow into that top line. Food and packaging consume about $840,000 or 30%. Labor and benefits take roughly $868,000, equal to 31%. Occupancy costs another $224,000. Royalty and advertising contributions total $252,000, while utilities, repairs, insurance, payment, processing, technology, cleaning, and other operating expenses use another $252,000. Local marketing, waste, licenses, and miscellaneous costs take $84,000. The restaurant appears to produce $280,000 of cash operating profit before debt service, owner taxes, depreciation, and major reinvestment. That is a 10% store-level margin, which sounds respectable. Now, subtract $150,000 of annual principal and interest on acquisition or build-out debt. Set aside another $70,000 for future equipment replacement and required remodeling. About $60,000 remains before personal tax and before deciding whether the owner's own full-time labor has been fairly compensated. Yet the sales screen still says $2.8 million. You do not receive $2.8 million. What belongs to the owner is the final residual after everyone else has been paid. Now stress the model. Traffic falls enough that annual sales decline to $2.5 million. Promotions protect some volume, but discounting and commodity pressure push food and packaging to 32% of sales. Labor cannot be reduced as quickly as revenue because the restaurant still needs managers, openers, closers, food safety coverage, and enough crew to operate the line. So labor rises to 33% of sales. Rent remains near $224,000. Royalty and advertising payments fall with revenue, but still take about $225,000. Other operating expenses decline only slightly because insurance, software, maintenance, utilities, and required services remain. The restaurant may now produce barely more than $100,000 before financing and reinvestment. Debt service is still $150,000. Equipment still wears out. The remodeling obligation has not vanished. A business that looked profitable in the normal year can require more than $100,000 of additional owner cash in the bad year, even though customers are still arriving and annual sales remain in the millions. That is operating leverage in plain language. The machine becomes highly profitable when volume rises faster than fixed and semi-fixed costs. When volume falls, the same structure magnifies the decline because many bills remain. A strong owner therefore watches more than revenue. Transactions reveal whether traffic is growing or whether price increases are hiding a customer decline. Average ticket shows whether bundles and add-ons are working. Food variance exposes waste and portion problems. Labor hours per transaction connects scheduling to demand. Drive-through time reveals capacity. Delivery mix shows how much sales growth is being purchased through commissions. Cash flow shows whether the restaurant can meet debt, taxes, and capital needs after the income statement has finished telling its story. Location remains the variable that cannot be repaired easily. A strong corner combines visibility, access, traffic patterns, nearby employment or housing, and enough space for vehicles to enter queue and leave. The wrong side of a divided road can reduce convenience. Construction nearby can destroy access for months. A new competitor may split demand. An anchor retailer can close and remove the trips that once fed the restaurant. The lease determines who absorbs those changes. A long-term protects the location, but can trap the owner. A short-term creates renewal risk after the restaurant has spent heavily on a site-specific build-out. Personal guarantees can extend the consequences beyond the company. Transfer restrictions can make it difficult to sell. A franchise agreement and a lease may also expire on different dates, leaving the owner with a location but no brand, or a brand agreement but no secure site. The future of fast food will focus on reducing friction without allowing technology costs to become another fixed burden. McDonald's said its digital loyalty ecosystem had nearly 210 million active users across 70 markets at the end of 2025. The company has also been testing artificial intelligence voice ordering, connected kitchen equipment, and smarter shift management. These tools are aimed at improving speed, uptime, accuracy, and labor productivity. Automation does not remove the central trap. A kiosk still requires software maintenance, payment processing, and a kitchen capable of fulfilling the order. Artificial intelligence can predict demand, but it cannot make a poor site convenient. Digital loyalty can increase frequency while also training customers to expect personalized discounts. Technology changes where the bottleneck appears. It does not eliminate the need to earn a return on each transaction. The second structural shift is ownership of the customer relationship. Third-party delivery can create reach, but first-party apps, loyalty programs, and direct pickup preserve more data and potentially more margin. Large chains have an advantage because millions of customers already trust their apps. Independent restaurants and smaller franchises may have to choose between paying platforms for discovery and spending heavily to build a direct channel that customers remember to use. None of this means a fast food restaurant is automatically a good or bad investment. Results change with the brand site lease financing contract, labor market, menu delivery mix, regulation, and the owner's operating skill. The figures in this example are educational illustrations, not personalized financial, legal, accounting, or investment advice, and real numbers should be checked against current disclosures, contracts, permits, lender, terms, and financial statements. What customers see is a meal assembled in minutes. Behind that meal sits a race to convert traffic into repeat transactions before food labor, rent, royalties, commissions, debt, and equipment consume the sale. You thought you were buying a grill, a counter, and a drive-through window. What you were really buying was a low-price, high-volume operating system in which millions of dollars can pass through the register while only the final few cents on each dollar belong to you.